Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Boston Office 365 user group. My name is Bill Gunning, and I'll introduce everybody else. So I'm Bill Gunning. I work for the Commonwealth, and with me today is Dimitri from Digital Partners, Turn Digital, and David Pileggi, who will be presenting today, who's also one of the organizers. Today's agenda, we just do a quick 365 updates, and then, so today's agenda, we'll just go through some updates and then go into our feature speaker. Last month, we had a speaker on Microsoft Fabric, your next level of data intelligence platform. That will be posted probably later next week. It's not on YouTube yet. And Microsoft updates is so in Microsoft, we've tried to present a couple of updates before the beginning of the our speakers, and the recent updates to Office 365 in general. Microsoft's working on simplifying the app bar in Teams. So they're doing another change again, where the bar can hide on you to simplify the UI. But I found the control / can turn it on and off. So if you're looking for a keyboard shortcut, that could be helpful. Microsoft Teams new drafts. So now if you click into various Teams chats and you get interrupted, you can go back quickly and find your different drafts. So just like in Outlook, they now have a draft folder to follow the same methodology, which I'm looking forward to because I run into some previous chats. I'm like, wait a minute, I never finished setting that one. Microsoft Defender for Office 365. So it looks like Microsoft's getting in front of Teams chat issues where somebody might, because there's more and more people opening up their tenants to chat across a meeting notes, or if you're in a meeting, you can see a chat from a meeting. So now Defender, if you have Defender, it'll scan those links to make sure they're valid, that they're not, going to infect you. So but you need to have the Defender plan in your tenant. Outlook is also retiring the contact masking. I don't know if you know what this is, but when you would search for a user and you would see a list of suggested users, you could actually close them so you don't see that person again because somebody's at the top of my list. I never worked with them, so I'm just going to get rid of those users. That feature is now going away, so when this update happens, you're going to see a lot more suggestions. There is no workaround for this, so it's just by design. They're going back to that. But they're going back to like it's out of the box. I don't know. Change meeting organizer be PowerShell. So now when somebody's on vacation, they're out, and you have a meeting organizer, it can be very difficult to take over a meeting. So you could call your IT, have them go change that meeting organizer for you. So this is really great. Cool. Somebody's been out for an extended period unexpectedly. So it's good to know. So you can contact your admin. But it has to be done by PowerShell. So you're going to need that. Definitely going to need that IT support for that one. AI, how do I do this? If you have the access, and if you don't. Retiring a Power BI Q&A. So before Copilot in Power BI, you could ask some questions. So those features are now going away. And luckily I have Copilot, so I can go back to that.
So do you see this as a push towards Copilot?
It could be. I mean,
are they kind of retiring that as a one-to-one replacement?
Well, Power BI, that was like an unusual thing. So Power BI had, I think for early adopters, you could ask questions. I don't know how that was functioning, if it was using Copilot or whatever, but that was prior to Copilot. And I think I used it once or twice. I talked to Dimitri and he's used it. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But you could go and ask questions.
So when you talk about the Power BI Q&A, is this different than the main Power BI, like natural speaking?
That is the one. So before Copilot, Microsoft was using NLP to understand the questions that you ask it and try to answer based on the data.
Yeah.
And with the
like the core selling point of Power BI?
Well, it was a value add. But with Copilot and the introduction of LLMs, this legacy NLP type approach just didn't pair up to like the latest standards. So they said we're not going to support this anymore. and we want you to use the.
Yeah, so that's all I was asking. So they're retiring this specifically to move to Copilot.
That was the former natural language prompt. What was that?
Natural language processing, NLP.
Language processing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What they don't tell you is that to use this feature in Power BI, you need the F64 license for Fabric, which is roughly $5,000 a month for the tenant.
Right. So it doesn't affect a lot of people. Right. So in SharePoint, they're now adding the quick steps column. Before you could click on an item, go to quick steps and run something. You now have that as metadata, so you could add a column for your quick steps. You could use JSON, you can do various things. So instead of I used to just add a calculated column and just leave it blank and then put my JSON in, they're just giving you metadata now to make it easier to go add that column, to go make it easier, which I always thought it'd be nice if they had more placeholder columns, but that was my workaround.
Agreed.
Calculated columns. So I wish they would give you the ability to add your own. SharePoint pages, retirement, web search, and Bing. So you could add images from the internet by using the image web part and go search the internet. They are now turning that off. It was a big issue because you could take art that might not necessarily be royalty free and stick it in. So I think they made it too seamless to put art in your SharePoint site that you probably did not have any royalty to. It wasn't open art.
Actually, they sold that as one of the features was anything that you went through that was supposed to be royalty free.
Well, not the web search, the Bing search, because that went out to the internet.
Right.
They have their own stock images, but
the stock images remain. The Bing image search was always on a best effort basis that it tries to infer what the license was. But the caveat there was that this is not like a legal endorsement.
Right.
So there were.
They tried to do public.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I remember very distinctly when they released the feature, and
it's easy to get images. Yeah.
They said you could use this specifically because, and to your point, I'm pretty sure all they were doing is passing through the query that would set the box to say only those that are tagged as free to use.
Yeah, it might have been.
And then that has the dependency of it has to be tagged accurately.
But then the image is getting uploaded and it's part of the SharePoint collection. So SharePoint Designer is being deprecated. I mean, not many people are using it. We turned it off on our tenants. You can't even run SharePoint Designer, but just for the people who have not disabled it, it is being completely deprecated. We're not going to do any more patches to it. It is something to look into. At some point, you might want to block it. That's what we decided to do. But there's something to be aware of if you need to get any flows out of Power Automate. If you haven't done it already, you should definitely be looking at it now. Microsoft 365 Copilot scheduling with Copilot and Classic Outlook for Windows. So you can schedule meetings directly from Copilot now.
You can basically tell it who needs to be in the meeting, and it'll find a conference room if you wanted to accommodate and find the next available time.
Okay, that's really cool. It actually might be quicker than trying to do it all yourself, right? So Copilot is also prepare for meetings with Copilot and Classic Outlook for Windows. You need here. This feature allows users with Microsoft Copilot license to access meetings related contexts, such as documents, communication, tasks. That's great. So Copilot tuning is introducing new templates and Agent Builder. I don't think I've used that. Anybody use Agent Builder?
Agent Builder is the one that's in Microsoft Teams integrated.
Oh, okay.
They keep changing it. It used to be Copilot Studio Lite, then it was Agent Builder, then it was Copilot Studio Lite, then it was Agent Builder.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to play with that one.
Power Virtual Agents.
Power Virtual Agents, thank you. That's what I was thinking of.
So AI skills is inferencing expanded to E3, E5 licensing.
Yes, so Microsoft has this ability where if you're licensed for Copilot to pretty much guess what your skills are. Yeah, so that if somebody searches for a skill that is connected to you, you would come up with those search results even if you don't manually enter that keyword. They are now expanding this feature set to those users that don't have Copilot, but at least have an E3 or E5.
Oh, okay. Because I used to put on my profile some of my skills. So it's inferring that from your work?
No, that is going to take it at face value. Well, let's say you do a lot of like collaborative work around the topic of, I don't know, conference room engineering.
Okay.
And it would then potentially flag if someone's looking for conference room engineering that Bill is your go-to person with the skill set.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, people, with the exception of the people in this room, nobody was filling out those skills.
Right. I mean, I filled it out. I'm just kind of
So-
wondering, like, what data points it's using to kind of
AI.
AI. So as I use Copilot.
Everything. No, not as you use Copilot. It's looking at every document that you ever upload to SharePoint, OneDrive,
So it's using that
anything
index,
that you've
new.
ever
Emails.
touched anywhere, all of your emails, any one of the other 270 some odd trigger points that Copilot looks at.
So God help you if you used your own account to like do a migration, because you're
Oh, right. I'm
you're
always.
pro for everything.
So I should use separate accounts now for migrations, or I have access to sites I probably shouldn't, because I support people. So I need to separate things. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
The access doesn't matter. It's the activity that you do
The activity. Well, my activity, I don't. Yeah, do activity there. But yes.
that it would use to determine what your skills are.
Ah, okay. So it's a good reason
It's
to have
not looking-
separate accounts.
It's not looking at the data, it's looking
Yeah.
at the activity.
Thank you, guys. New policy to add watermarks to content generated or altered by using AI Microsoft 365 to help provide additional transparency. So I guess they're adding watermarks to everything you work on. AI Microsoft 365 providing you with the policy setting. So your admin could set a policy for this. I don't know if end users can find out if the policy is on or not. Do you know if end users can discover that? There are watermark readers. You could put your image through like a public watermark reader and it'll tell you there's a watermark in there.
I think this is a pretty obvious watermark.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay. There's also a way of doing hidden watermark. When I was in publishing, you could have watermarks that were obvious and they were not obvious. So. Okay, and huge thank you to Turn Digital for providing the food and the space, including in person. So if you ever want to come out to Newton, it's a great location. Today was an easy drive. It's school vacation week,
It was.
but it's a good opportunity to come and meet us in person. And then we do go out afterwards for a drink. So if you're looking for a community, come on out. We're down here. And with no further ado, teaching SharePoint to the next generation. Please, using mashups.
All right. Teaching SharePoint to the next generation employees using mashups. So I guess I should probably start by social media. Everyone's on there at one point or another. I have a blog. What I'll do is I can throw these links for all y'all that are online. If you want, I did put the link to my YouTube channel, Come Alive with M365. However, I can also do the others as well if you so desire. I'm not too difficult to find. Please feel free to reach out to me. I definitely enjoy increasing my network. It is always appreciated. All right. For my introduction, you guys probably remember me from the movie Clone X, another one. All right. How about In Search for a Rich Widow? No. Fine. My Pet Dinosaur, you all remember me on? No. Okay. Fine. Real one. Long story short, I've been working professionally in the IT industry for 23 years now. It kind of scares me, but hey, that is what it is. I've been working with SharePoint for 20. Technically, I've started the 21st year. So yeah, that was kind of a humbler when I actually started figuring that out. That's kind of wild. I did do development for 3 years. Last thing I did was on Visual Studios 6.0 Service Pack 4. So yes, I remember everything. It's painful. I did a lot of consulting. I also did the private sector. Let's see, I've been in the speaking circuit since 2009. And like one fun thing about me, I used to work as Dr. Egon Spengler of the Ghostbusters show at Universal Studios Florida when I was a much, much, much younger man. So for the agenda, we're going to go into history fun. I like history. It's something I enjoy, and it's actually kind of a part of why I'm even doing this presentation. Why the training? mashup, what is a mashup, high level, and then I'll actually get into the demo. Now, for those of you who've seen me speak, I like to do it as a kind of like a classroom environment. Think of this as college. If you got a question, bust right in. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask those questions. This is for you. I can talk I can talk for hours. That's the easy part. Getting me to shut up, that's a trick. But long story short, I'm doing this for you and everyone in the room because you've come because you're looking for certain answers, and so I want to make sure that you leave with those answers. All right, some online history. Generation X started in 1965. I was born in 1970, so I am a Gen Xer. Back in that day, we weren't always kept in. We were basically we were told to go out until the streetlights came on, unless we were called in for dinner. That was the only other time we were allowed inside the house, unless it was raining, and then that was even questionable. Long story short, I'm sure we all can have similar stories, building all kinds of things like ramps with whatever wood you could find to jump your BMX bike, et cetera, and so forth. And so that is kind of it. Internet was not a thing. I remember when Pong was a coin-op. It was 25 cents to have one square paddle and another square paddle and knock a square ball back and forth. That was the beginning for me as far as my interest in computer science, and I kind of never looked back. That being said, let's start. That was a generation filing cabinets. There was no such thing as computers at that time. I think when I was in 6th grade, so I was what, 12 or 13. That's when the Commodore 64 came out, and Apple II was it Apple IIe, I believe, was another one. TRS-80. I know you guys are like, for those of you who are young, you're like, I have no idea what those are. Yep, no problem. And the long and the short of it is, those are computers. There was a 2600 baud modem for the Commodore 64, but you would actually have to call directly to another user that had a Commodore 64. That was the internet back in the day, so to call. In 1989, that was when actual dial-up, actual internet became something of a main household staple. That is when things started to gain momentum, gain speed when it came to collaboration. Collaboration was something that email was starting to be introduced into large companies. And then over time, I'm sure you guys probably have an entire wall that was probably plastered with AOL online discs that they would send probably every, like, what, other day? And because they were the ones who pretty much started up, especially with email. Everyone knows you got mail. That voice or soundbite, I guess, is something a lot of people are recognize. That all of a sudden collaboration became a lot more interactive. It became worldwide instantaneously, and it was something that a lot of people use. I can also whip out the things like MSN, AOL, Yahoo, and then how many of you remember Trillion, where you had all three different ones, and you end up using Trillion to actually tying all your different chat
multiple accounts for each.
Yeah, and multiple accounts for each. That application was absolutely god tier when it came to back in the day. So collaboration became even more of a thing. All of a sudden, it's instant gratification. It's no longer I send you an email and wait for you to read the email and send it back. Collaboration started to gain even more momentum.
You left a Prodigy.
Prodigy, holy cow! How about Netscape? Yeah, I know. I'm throwing a lot of things in. For those of you who are younger, and we'll actually get into that. Broadband in the 2000s. So in the 2000s, broadband started to become a thing around 2001, but over time, around 2009, it became more of a main staple between DSL and cable connections. That became more of a thing for everyone. Now, let me actually do something really quick. Okay. Actually, can I go backwards? Let's find out. Let's go back to the previous one. All right. The reason why I have the online, I give you the little history tour, is because of the effect of this. The reason why, I created this particular session, and it's why you guys are actually interested. Remember I said that I've been doing SharePoint for 20 years now, almost 21. Please understand, this year is the 25th anniversary of SharePoint, when SharePoint 2001 first came out. So 25 years of SharePoint is now under belt. And for those of you from Microsoft, you probably remember as Project Tahoe. Long story short, if you go back 25 years, that's when the people were being born who are now actually entering the workforce. So SharePoint's been around as long as they've been here. Now, they were not thinking about SharePoint when they were in like middle school and things like that. The golden age of SharePoint was around, I would say 2007 was the beginning of the golden age of SharePoint. That is when, and I see a lot of people here nodding their head, that is when SharePoint went God tier. And what do I mean by that? In 2006, there was a SharePoint conference in November, and Bill Gates, it was his very last, my pants are ringing, please hold. All right, there we go. A lot of people who were there will remember this. For those of you who were not there, Bill Gates, in his entire thing, it was talking about SharePoint and how it was going to revolutionize. And the thing that stands out to my mind to this day is that he said 95% of the changes from Portal Server 2003 to MOS, Microsoft Office SharePoint Server, was done and taken from the people who were using the previous versions. Only 5% was actually ideas that Microsoft themselves came up with. What ended up happening by the end of 2007, when we started to celebrate New Year's for 2008, SharePoint was the largest growing and the fastest growing server product that Microsoft has ever seen. And I would wager, probably to this day, I don't think they've had a server product that has actually beaten SharePoint 2007. That was the beginning of something great, and it came in the name of collaboration. The need for collaboration was absolutely necessary because of the fact people were using broadband. Companies were always online. It was not a luxury, it was a necessity. It was something that companies actually had to have in order to function in this modern day, or else they would fall behind. They would end up falling by the wayside. And so this is something that was absolutely extremely important. Well, now that we've gotten to that point, from SharePoint 2007's release to about, I would say, 2013, when SharePoint 2013 was released, that was the golden age of SharePoint, because there was such a huge vacuum of information that was missing. People were still learning how to use it. It was a tool that a lot of companies implemented but did not realize what power they had in front of them. So you would have a lot of, I don't think that they even exist anymore, evangelists for SharePoint. Joel Olson, Christian Buckley are just a couple of the names that were known, literally world renowned. In fact, I think Joel Olson, his passport looks like a bingo book. I think he's been to every country at least once, and I think he's working on twice. Just different things like that. That was pretty much when SharePoint collaboration really started to take root and take hold. Fast forward a little bit later, beyond broadband, I probably should have put this in here, 2020. A lot of you guys remember 2020 and not fondly because of the COVID epidemic that a lot of people had to deal with. That kind of made a resurgence out of absolute sheer necessity because businesses would have gone out of business if they could not find a way to interact and work together. And the only way they could do it is by actually using SharePoint, Microsoft Teams when 2020 rolled around. And so because of that, the collaboration kind of went not only full tilt, but it actually literally saturated across the globe, again, out of absolute necessity. And so what has ended up happening is you have this initial drive of SharePoint. From the initial drive of SharePoint, a lot of people, a lot of power users, I'm from that initial thing. Like I said, I was at the 2006 when SharePoint 2007 was announced. That generation, we've been around for a while. Like I said, I've been doing it for 20 years. We have a new generation that's coming in. And one of the things that has happened is because of the fact that that generation has been on the internet literally their entire life, they don't remember even having to use dial-up. That's a whole different thing. They know how to be online. They know how to use web applications. They know how to do things, and they have a certain mindset already going in. But when they're in a workforce, you say, okay, here's a SharePoint site because of the fact that they have uploaded pictures and videos and things like that to YouTube, to Instagram, to all these, to Reddit, whatever the case may be. They're already familiar with how to interact with a web application. The problem that companies are having is they understand it, but the same thing is their ideas and concepts may not align with the company as well. You're kind of questioning that, which is fine. A lot of times companies especially back in the day, let's see, Bill English and Ben Curry wrote a book called The Best Practices of SharePoint 2007 and 2013 when 2013 came out. And basically, there were certain ideas that were put in place and that companies over time has started to utilize. Things like when you create a new list or a library, use underscores instead of spaces, and then go back and make look better after the fact that you create the list or library. Why do you do that? Because then you not only save space on the URL by two characters per space, but you also have a much more legible URL so that you can actually have a visual indication as to where you are within your SharePoint environment. Just different little tips and tricks like that, and there were a lot of them. All right. So I kind of started busting into this. So the new generation does have the knowledge how to use online applications. They've been around it. In fact, some of them could probably spin circles. But the thing is, with that makes it easy for companies. Hey, come in. This is a SharePoint site. This is where we keep our files. Oh, I know how to use that. And they kind of run with it, and they kind of blend right in. But the thing is, without the training, here are lists. This is libraries. This is metadata. This is how you use the search engine. This is what you can do with pages. There are a lot of other things that they do not know about, and because of that, they need that direction. And so the company may have the best solution ever, but as new employees come in, you will find either resistance because they know how of a way to do it, air quotes, better, or they just may not know that it even exists. And so that's something that you want to keep in mind. You need to have your company goals be taught or at least iterated to your new generation of employees so that way they can build on it. Now, in the same regard, one of the things that I like to talk about when I do my office hours, never disregard the new generation. Like I said, they've been around it for so long, it comes second nature to them. They let them to interact with you, with the OGs, if you will. Let them interact with and say, hey, this is how you built this system. Have you tried this? Don't rest on the laurels. We've always done this way. There's always going to be a better over time. Microsoft is constantly making changes, updates, and things like that. What may have been a best practice, 10, 15 years ago, may not be a best practice now, or there might be a new solution that hasn't even been thought of, that someone who is the newer generations that you've just hired on literally right out of college might actually be able to assist with and actually make something a much better solution for you and continue to build and grow. All right. Yeah, go for it.
Just to add the reverse perspective onto that, one of the other things that I have found is because this generation that you're speaking of is so incredibly comfortable with this type of work, for the companies that do not have a great SharePoint environment,
Yep.
the tolerance for the inefficiencies of that is incredibly low with these people because they know what it can be.
Yeah.
So I've seen and worked with a lot of clients that are having the opposite problem, where they're having problems retaining the younger generations because they're not up to snuff on these types of things, and they're not meeting the expectations of norms.
That would be no, that's a very good observation, and that's also extremely correct, because of that very fact that they have been built. They're basically been built on the internet. At least their mind has been, to the point where if they do see inefficiencies and you say, well, this is how we always done it, that is going to be a instant negative against your company. And it might not be something that you're doing intentionally, but it could definitely hurt your retention of young blood or new blood. And what ends up happening is you end up over time just aging out your entire company. So you have to be careful in that. And sometimes, and actually that might be a good slide prior to this one, is maybe what you need to do as the young blood comes in is send them to a SharePoint site. What do you and actually have them critique it. Is the data, or is the document library and the metadata, does it make sense to you? Are you able to find what you're looking for? Is this something that you would be able to use or would recommend using? And just sitting back and listening, because and if the answer is no, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I would also say one of the things that I think is unique from your perspective is your company, in no small part to your influence, has a very good educational program and a very good attitude towards that, in that it is reoccurring and iterative, and you have these open sessions. I actually, when I talk to my clients, reference the models that I have learned from what you're doing at your company as best practices. A lot of companies don't have that. They don't think about that. They don't think about training as being a reoccurring sort of thing. And that's a super important component.
Again, and this is kind of like what you just talked about, but next level, this entire presentation is kind of building off of that. For those of you who don't understand, I work at Staples, and I went in when it was greenfield, meaning they never used SharePoint ever. And so because of that, I was able to walk in on the heels of the John Wayne group, who showed them how they wanted to put together their SharePoint environment. They put together the governance document. I was lucky. I had governance documents in place when I walked in the door. I had a SharePoint plan Some of it I agreed with, some I didn't, which is always fine. But the long and the short of it is they had a plan, they had a growth pattern, they had all these things in place. So I was actually able, from my consulting days where I would play the John Wayne figure up to the point where the money ran out and then go, I built this great environment. I wish I could actually take them to the utilization of it. In Staples, I was able to do that. The first year I was actually speaking to anyone that would listen to me. However, as the snowball started to roll down the hill, I couldn't do my day job anymore because I had nothing but meetings. And so what I ended up doing is saying, all right, once a week for 2 hours, first come, first serve. Please come to my office hours. Any questions, fair game that has anything to do with M365. Let's see here. I've been there 9 years, so that's been going on for 7 years. And the only time we miss a week is if there's a P1 incident, which only happened once. And the other is the Christmas and New Year's weeks because no one's there. So that every single week, my team actually does hold office hours. I call it office hours. Long story short, it is an internal M365 or Office 365 user group. That's what it's turned into. And because of it, a lot of good things have come out of it. Back when we first released Teams, 6 months before we released Teams, we took our frequent flyers of our user office hours and we turned them into Microsoft Teams champions. They signed up, in fact, to the point where people were begging to become part of that team. They learned from our model. They held their own office hours for their respective areas because they were all over the company. People from HR, people from sales and marketing, people from security, all different parts of the entire company were frequent flyers to our office hours and therefore became our champions. The first week that we released Microsoft Teams, we had only 2 tickets to come in. Those were pretty much nominal, which is kind of unusual when you first release a brand new product in-house. Now, I'm also hiding the fact that it was the biggest underground release ever because over 8,000 people were already using it before we even, air quotes, officially released it. So it's a thing. All right, circling back, so training is always important. Do not underestimate office hours. One of the reasons why I did it is because the only way I could be able to, at the time when I first started it, I was the only resource for the entire company. And at that time, we were looking at about 16,000 information workers all at once. There was no way for me to babysit that many. And so what I ended up doing is using the office hours and building up power users who could also answer questions as well. Going from there, the reason why I like to use Mashups as an example is because it uses multiple facets of Microsoft SharePoint that a lot of people may or may not even know even exists. For the definition, it's creating a complex solution by combining multiple smaller parts. Some people call it kit bashing, pulling a MacGyver, Legos. There's multiple ways of doing it. I'll take a list, I'll take a library, I'm going to use a SharePoint site page, I'm going to use whatever the case may be. I might use a SharePoint site column in order to tie everything together. Whatever the case may be, what ends up happening is you take different pieces of SharePoint to build a bigger and better solution. On my blog and on my YouTube channel, I actually did a series called Building a Mashup. I created a CRM, I gotta be careful, it's not a Microsoft CRM. That is a product within itself. However, I wanted to show what is possible, and as well as having the ability for you to ask the questions, is this a good idea? What am I trying to solve? What business process am I trying to improve upon? What certain questions you need to be able to ask in order to move forward. So when you use them, a lot of times I look for certain things. That's a common theme. Lookup columns. A lot of times, if I have multiple, either a list or libraries that are looking up another list or another library, that usually is a pretty good indicator that there is a possibility you could build a mashup on a singular page or multiple page, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, the visuals you're looking for. The terms, so using taxonomy is another great way of indicating that there might be a use for a mashup. Common threads such as fiscal year. Fiscal year is probably one of the most common that I've seen in a lot of document libraries. And so what ends up happening is you have these different document libraries that have fiscal year attached to it. You could probably build something to allow people to use the filters and actually have a much more clear visual of that fiscal year. Multiple lists and multiple libraries, the need for organization. I like how the end is just floating there by itself. That's fabulous. I'll have to work on that. Sorry, squirrel. But long and the short of it is when you have a lot of lists and libraries and you find yourself flipping back between them because they have certain commonalities, that is another great indication. And yeah, I did throw the just because in because of the fact that data, everybody sees data differently. I can tell you right now, my team will see data in SharePoint very differently than someone from marketing or someone from contracts or someone from even the cybersecurity team. Sometimes you'll end up finding that a mashup is a great way to present the data that you need to your team or whatever the case may be. And that's one way of looking at it. When you plan on building it, just like anything else, you want to actually have a clear-cut goal. Solidify your idea, meaning use a whiteboard. Microsoft Teams has a whiteboard functionality and feature in your Teams meetings. You can certainly use that. For those of you who have Surface Hubs available, you can use the Surface Hub and create a whiteboard, save that right into your OneDrive. There's a lot of other features as well to do that, but understand what you're trying to solve or try to accomplish. Let me give you an example. In Staples, we have a gentleman, but I'll just call him Mike for right now. Mike had a business problem, and that business problem was that we were onboarding new clients and customers, and we have when the account is extremely large, there are certain steps that have to be followed. Well, those certain steps, the way it was done old school was they end up doing things with an Excel spreadsheet. This should sound very familiar. Most companies do this. It was fine, well and good, but the problem is the process to onboard a new client or customer took anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks because of all the different moving pieces and the things between legal and finance and everything else that had to go on. He had an idea. He created a SharePoint list that became a database and literally built off of that. And that database was populated by our Microsoft form. And so literally what he did, he created a Visio diagram and actually built out, this is what we're trying to do. This is the business process. Identified where the bottlenecks were. How can we clear up these bottlenecks so we can make this go faster? Can we do things in parallel versus having to do this as a sequential? There was a lot of questions he asked, and he was a frequent flyer. Every single Thursday, he would show up to the office hours. I got to this far, I'm stuck. Where do I go from there? And what ended up happening is over time, he built out a Power Automate that I never knew was possible. He actually was able to blow it out sideways, meaning you can only go 8 conditions deep before it crashes. So he ended up going parallel. All of a sudden, things started to open up. And what ended up happening is that business process for onboarding new clients and customers went from a month down to 24 to 48 hours. It was like night and day. And so because of it, we were able to service clients and customers at a much more rapid rate, and thus, and this was all a brainchild off of him coming up with the idea and then just taking his time, and actually with that planning was able to build it.
So the moral of the story is hire people named Mike.
Indeed. Let's see here, building develop parts in full. So literally, he started with a Visio diagram, and then the next thing was a Microsoft form. He built that. Okay, what do I do next? Power Automate. What is this thing? Okay. And so he literally took one bite at a time. Never try to swallow an elephant whole. I'm just letting you know. You look kind of funny with the trunk sticking on one side and the tail on the other side of your neck. But it was an amazing solution, and he's now working on 2 other business processes because of how successful that initial one was. All right. Going into the demo, actually, let's go ahead and do that. While I switch over, does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments?
Do you have any good examples of a mashup, like a final result?
Sure. Let's actually, I can jump into, before we build one, I can certainly do that as well. Let me jump into, I think I built it. Actually, let's go this way, easier. Okay, so in my series, I built the CRM. I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So let's go ahead and open this in SharePoint. Let's see, open SharePoint, there we go. So just in case we don't have time, we'll be able to do that. All right. So over here, I created Extreme Widgets CRM, and okay, I guess SharePoint's taking a nap right now. I guess we could talk about Barbara Streisand while we wait. I'm feeling a little verklempt.
Refresh.
Yeah, that's usually what. Okay, there we go. Bye-bye. So as you can see here, we have the customers. We have a couple company names: Astro Dog Walking Belts, as well as Spacely Sprockets. And then over here we have customer contacts. Down below we have the interactions that we have captured so far. So if I click on, let's go with Astro Dog Walking Belts, you can see the individuals who work for Astro Walking Belts is going to be shown. And then any of the interactions that I had with Astro Dog Walking Belts down below, specific to, in this case, the clinic doctor, A. Aldrin. And so I spoke to him and things like that. The way that it works, I have 3 lists: the customers, customer contacts, and the interactions. Each of those are their own separate lists. The one thing that is the main tie-in is each of the other ones. So the customer contacts as well as interactions has a lookup field that looks up the company name. So as I create new companies, what'll end up happening is automatically everything else will fall in place. So let me go ahead and do that really quick. Captain click here. So okay. One of the things that I do usually when I do a mashup, so that this is going to be different for everyone. In the case of making it look a little bit more presentable for my blog as well as the YouTube channel, I turned off the ability to have the bar with like the new interactions with it to make it look nice and clean. You do not have to do that. The reason why I do that is because of the fact that I expect to see people who are coming here that should not have the rights to do that anyway. They're here to consume the data, but maybe not actually add certain things, such as customers or the contacts. However, everyone has the ability to add a new interaction. So the people who are my sales reps, they go out or they make a phone call, whatever the case is, we want them to capture it. So for me, I'm going to say I'm going to be the one who actually is going to go ahead and add. All right, so let's see here. Let's see, flying cars limited, and then 400 space terrace. And then we're going to go in. Let's see here. Good Lord, I forgot the name of the Jetsons city. All right, that's all right. We'll call it New Vegas. And then bottom, and then fabulous number. There we go. And then main phone is 555-123-4567, and we're good. Go USA. All right, beautiful. And so as you can see here, we added another company. So if we go back to here, we now have 3 companies. And as you can imagine, this over time is going to get longer and longer. I built a mashup internally for a vendor portal. And one of the things that we have is multiple lists creating that mashup. And the way that they have simplified it is by actually doing either filters or actually grouping, not grouping, but just searching on a specific thing. So in this case, let's say there's 20, 30, 40 companies. I don't want to keep scroll. So what I've done is I've taught them how to use the filter to automatically, so when it's applied, it's very easy to deal with, and everything else will come into play. So one of the things that when you build a mashup, also keep in mind, how are you going to interact with that information? How are you going to interact with it, with the data, and how is it best going to be used? Because I'll tell you right now, you could build the most amazing mashup ever, but what's going to end up happening is no one's going to use it because either A, they don't feel like it's better than the way they've already done it, which is the most common. I've always done it this way. In order to have somebody change their paradigm or shift their paradigm to something new and something different, you have to prove to them it's going to save them time, it's going to make them more money, a combination thereof, or it's going to be much easier because of. That's just how people are. People tend to flow the easiest, the least. The path of least resistance, I guess, is the best way of describing it. It's the norm. I know that I'm that way, and so a lot of times when I build a mashup, I want to make sure that that mashup and the way it's thought up is in such a way that it's going to be nice and clean. It'll be easy to be able to operate. Let's see, so we have George, the inventory manager, and then I can actually interact with George in that case. Now I can see right now that this, let's grab this is not filtering properly because I think I made changes to it, which is fine. So.
Now the way the lookups work, you usually have to do them in a certain order, right? You can't filter the right to filter the left. So
Correct.
So lookup, it's usually one list filters the next, and that list filters the next.
Yes. So the answer is yes. So for those of you who may not have heard that, how does it? It's like dominoes. When you set up a set of dominoes, the first one is going to be the one that is going to let the rest of the dominoes fall. Now you can have multiple pass of dominoes, meaning if I put one domino here, and then if I'm smart and I put one domino that's going to get brushed by it and the other one's going to get brushed by it, then all of a sudden I have two different dominoes falling, then yes, that is possible as well.
But it's not bi-directional. Like in Power BI, you could do it so this bi-directional filters here in SharePoint, it's one direction. So you have to like train people on the order of procedures.
Yeah.
Just to let people know who've done this in other applications.
Yes, that's a very good point. So one of the things that you have to be clear when you do share your mashup with your peers, with your team, with or maybe you were commissioned by a different team because you're part of IT. It's like, we need this to solve this business problem. Oh, we can build a mashup because now you've got all the data there. You just haven't put it all together, whatever the case may be. You're going to want to show, okay, if you want to do, in this case, the CRM, you want to narrow down what you're looking at, be sure to choose the company name, because if you choose anything else, it's just still all going to be there. It's not going to be as easy to wade through the data, especially as it gets larger and larger.
I've done pages where if somebody wanted to go in the other direction, they want to look at contacts to companies. I just set up another page and then I'll just put contacts on the left and then,
No, and that's
I've done that by doing additional pages, but I always tell people the top or the leftmost box is where you start. Yeah.
And that is a really good point. So when you design your mashup, you may want to keep that in mind. It's very possible. I may not know the company name, but I know I'm looking for Buzz Aldrin. I don't know that he works for SpaceX Rockets, whatever the case may be. So you could have a page where you have a different cornerstone, I guess is the best way of calling it. Have a cornerstone, in this case it's the company. Make another page, so it's contact as a cornerstone, whatever the case may be. That's also a really good point. Go ahead.
Also, to both of your points, one of the things that I do when I'm building things like this is just include a little text block inside each pane that kind of describes and gives descriptions around the procedures to do it and the potential limitations like that. Also, I like how you mentioned turning off the toolbar. I actually almost always do that, and then I'll add custom buttons for just the activities that I want them to use.
Also a great idea as well. Again, you also thought it through. You understood what the mission was, so to speak, and it's like, okay, we want to do this, but we do not want to give them so much that they're not going to use it, because it's like they just kind of throw their hands up in absolute frustration. That's the norm. That's the reason why you've got to be careful. When you make a mashup, you can make the best mashup in the world, but if it's not easy to use, it becomes problematic. Now,
or also easy to accidentally screw up, because Microsoft makes it really easy for like one click to like accidentally just throw it into chaos.
I do like chaos.
So yeah, we do, but you know.
Joking aside, however, the white space between this banner here and the customers, having a text field where it's actually teaches them how to use it. So if I have a new next gen worker come in, they can come here and it's like, oh, they'll literally just glance over once. It's like, oh, that makes sense, and then they'll jump right into it. Or they may say, okay, that's great, but what if you do it this way? So there's a lot of things that you can do. This, like I said, I made this for a very specific thing for a look and feel. However, there's a lot more to it that I should have done, like the tips and tricks of how do you want to use this mashup? That's absolutely true as well. Now, I'm thinking that this one may not be playing well with others. So let's go ahead and we can go into the edit mode and actually check to see if that's the case. So What I'm going to do is going to go to interactions. I'm going to go to edit properties. I'm going over here. Now, it was called something different. So the modern page for the longest time did not have the dynamic filtering at all. It gave me an eye twitch for a long time. However, once they did add dynamic filtering, life was much, much better. And so as you can see here, the dynamic filtering is set, and it's set by the contact and the customer contacts and email. So remember I said dominoes, and you're, Mike, I think you're the one who actually brought the domino concept up. No, Bill, you were. The long and the short of it is they can choose not only which company that they're going to work with, but then they can say, okay, I'm interacting with the clinic doctor, or I'm interacting with whomever. And so what they'll be able to do is do that, and all of a sudden the interactions goes from this huge monster list down to the however many times you interacted with that particular client or that particular contact. I got to be very careful I say that, because if I say client, then we're talking company in this instance. And so what ends up happening is with the CRM, I sent them an email inviting them to a lunch and learn. I sent them an invitation to a night on the town, or whatever, for a sales pitch. Whatever the case may be, all this information in a CRM is going to be captured. Or we sent them a mailer via snail mail, and for our brand new product that's being released, whatever the case may be. Over time, you'll build interactions for each individual client, each individual contact, and so that's what it is. However, as you can see here, the column interaction, so who the contact is, and then from there, it's going to be which list or library is going to be contain the filter, which is customer contacts, this up here in the right, top right. And then the column containing the filter value properties, it's going to be the email. So I in this case, use the email because there might be two different, George Floyd, as an example. There might be one gentleman who works for Spacely Sprockets, another one who works for the Flying Cars Limited. They might have the same name, and so I use the email versus just the name to ensure that I can visually see that they indeed work for the company, and I am choosing the appropriate one for that specific interaction. Now, I could, if you want, we can try to make a mesh. I don't know how much time we have left. We got like, what, 10, 15 minutes? Maybe?
15, 20.
So I'd rather open up to questions and comments and concerns, because of the fact that I know I threw a lot of information at you all once. You guys look like the Memorex commercial. I get it. Your hair's blown back. But at the same time, hopefully I was able to answer some of the questions. But are there other questions out there? Feel free to unmute as well. Go ahead.
What's dynamic filtering?
Great question. So when you turn on dynamic filtering, what it's saying is I want to be able to have this particular list being filtered by something else on this. So dynamic means just in time. I click this. This particular one, it automatically is going to filter immediately without reloading the page. It's going to automatically go ahead and filter for me in a different area.
Okay.
So it's dynamic.
So what columns you tie together? So, like if you show her like what columns are tied together in the first two lists, for example.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. So
it makes more sense when you see what's tied together.
It does. So let's go here to the customers, and then you can see list as the customers. There's no dynamic filtering. Why? Because this one's not getting filtered. This is the one that's going to send the filter elsewhere. The elsewhere is here. if I choose Flying Cars Limited, I want to see only the customers that are going to be interacting with that customer. So
So the first list doesn't get limited at all. There's no filter on it. You
correct.
select something from the first list. The second list now will be reduced by,
Will be reduced by however, right? So only specific to that particular in this case, company name. So Flying Cars Limited. If we go down to dynamic filtering, we can see the column that's contained in the filter is customers over here. And then list library is also customers. And then down here, you can see contain the filter value property, and I used company name in this case, because this customer contacts has a lookup to the customers as the company name, because all my customers are companies, because I'm Spacely Sprout. I are Extreme Widgets. I build widgets for all these different companies. And so I want to be able to interact that way. And so let me go ahead and republish this really quick. So when I select on like Spacely Sprockets, automatically this is changed so that only George over here at spacelysprockets.com is selected. Now, the reason why I do this is because we may have, right now, George is the inventory manager, but I might also have the CEO. I might have the doc or the warehouse manager, or I might have the purchasing officer, something like. So this allows for multiple individuals in this particular case from the same company. So that way we can not only can interact with different people, like say, for example, I'm doing a black tie event and I'm trying to invite all the C-suite. I can go through and actually select all the CEOs, the CTOs, CFOs, whatever the case may be. Mashups are probably only limited by your imagination. And depending upon what you're trying to accomplish, the mashup is a really good way of doing it. Now, that being said, I used a CRM as an example. However, things like Salesforce.com, Microsoft CRM, there are actual applications out there. This is air quotes. In this case, this CRM is a poor boy's version, or a poor person's version of a CRM, but it's something that could easily help a company of 1 to 2 employees with maybe 1 sales staff be able to start up a business and be able to run with it until they get to a point where, okay, we've outgrown this mashup. We now need a real solution, such as Microsoft CRM, as an example.
How does it know that those 2 items correlate on the 2 different lists?
Perfect. That is a great example.
Is there metadata that they share?
Yep. So let's actually go into it. So I'm going to start with.
I think your second list is not showing that column, right? So it's hidden.
Yeah.
So that's, so when I first build them, I actually show the column so I see them.
Yeah.
And then you could go into that column and filter by it. But what you can do is you can take that column away and then have these things connected.
That makes sense.
And just
not
add,
showing the full list.
yeah, and just add to like the context list, we'll have a lookup column to the company list.
Yep.
So whenever you add a contact, you have to pick something that would match here.
Okay.
So then in your data mashup, when you click on that one, it has a hard match from that lookup to just those rows.
Same thing like databases, you want to have like columns match so you can filter by. So it's like a lazy or simple, more straightforward way of, instead of using SQL.
Let's actually take that into account. So as you can see, I'm in the customer contacts right now. You can see this is what indicates that this is a company is a lookup field is because it's a link, and if I click on that, it's actually going to open up into the actual. Okay, let's go ahead and.
So that's how you would have a list referencing another list.
Yep.
With a
In
VLOOKUP.
fact, let's go ahead and show you that. So I've got too many things open. Okay, there we go. So if I go into the list settings for our customer contacts, you will see right here, this company is a lookup, and that company lookup is looking at the company name and customers.
Now, when you do mashups, you don't need to have it be a lookup, right? They can just be separate lists that filter each other.
It can be. I think I like to use the lookup. And here's and actually that's a really good question, Bill. Here's the reason why I like to use lookup, because then you can also force the relationships as well. When you force the relationships, you can restrict delete. For example, I'm Captain Click. I like to click things, and I click things way too often half the time before I read it. That's just
That's a good point. Restrict delete, yeah.
So with restrict delete means if I have 5 different individuals who are part of the Spacely Sprockets, I don't want to be accidentally delete Spacely Sprockets from the customer's list. Vice versa, the cascade delete. If I delete, I would have to do this in the customers. But if I do cascade delete in the customers, that would then mean if I delete Spacely Sprockets, every single customer contact would be deleted instantly as well. That's called the cascade delete.
Does cascade delete follow multiple tiers?
The answer is yes.
So if you had cascade delete on that and on the customers list, it would also remove all of the activity?
So including the interactions, yes. So
that's cool.
If you turn it on. Now, interactions, I might say, you know what? I do not want to remove the interactions because at the end of the year, we want to do an amalgamation of everything that we've done over the year. So even though we deleted Spacely Sprockets in August, it doesn't matter because of the fact that the interactions are still captured. But at the same time, I might end up setting up so that at the year end, like year end in a month, so January 31st, it'll automatically do a data retention purge of the previous year, whatever the case may be.
Is cascade delete relatively new?
No, it's been there since, it's been there for ages. A lot of people.
All right, quite a while, like back to
2003.
2003, yeah.
A lot of, a lot, and
just Mandela effect then.
Don't
I know the restrict
because delete. A lot of people didn't use it because they didn't understand it. Because unless you were at one time or another in your life a database administrator, you wouldn't understand the context behind it. And so that's one of the coolest things about having these office hour, whether it's office hours, user groups, or whatever, is being able to glean this new information. Is like, oh, I could actually use that. Why? Because of this, and this. And also, what ends up happening is, and it's one of the reasons why I believe, from a collaborative standpoint, and why the user community for M365 and SharePoint specifically is so strong, I guess, is because of the fact we're constantly teaching each other. I've been doing this for 20 years and I still have people, hey, I just did this. And I'm like, oh, didn't know that was possible. There is so much that's going on.
Now, restrict delete, does that restrict delete on both lists or just like the cascading list, the one below it?
So on
the parent,
only one that it's pulling from. So I'm not allowed to delete Spacely Sprockets unless I manually delete all the contacts that are attached to Spacely
The child. So if I want to clean something up, I have to go down to the lower lists, delete things first. But once the dependencies are gone, then I can go to the topmost list, or the first item you would start filtering by.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And that's a great, and so from that perspective, using either restrict delete or cascade delete will actually allow you to protect your data and allow you to ensure that your data is protected in such a way that it's going to be a much more conscious process versus, because you don't want Spacely Sprockets accidentally get deleted and all these contacts get all of a sudden orphaned because of the fact that it's no longer there.
But they could delete one of the child's first.
So from a developer standpoint, you just think of it as adding a rule that says do not delete if children greater than 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from a data integrity point of view, I mean, I've done a lot of lookup mashups, but I haven't necessarily gone through the extra effort of doing all the lookup fields to tie things together because I just needed a quick, I had this list over here, this list over here, I just needed some quick filters. But from a data integrity point of view, it makes sense. I just haven't had the time, the list was so long to go and add all the lookups.
Yeah.
I have
and that's
noticed
just
that
it.
you can populate the lookups. So if you know what they are, you can do,
Sure.
you can make it a lookup field and populate them.
Sure.
So I have done that on large lists.
Yeah.
And I've used like some scripts to do it. So that's been helpful.
Yeah. Again, I say this to everyone. Everyone needs to know their data. And like I said, each part of the organization, you might end up being part of, let's say, our legal team. You might be part of the IT team. You might be part of our DevOps team. I could be part of cybersecurity. We see data very differently. And from a perspective, I love to use the Rubik's Cube for perspective. We may all be looking at the same SharePoint list, but we may see the data differently. If I put a table right here in the middle of the room and I say, Arthur, what do you see? And you see, I see red, white, and blue because that's what your perspective, the Rubik's Cube, but you're going to say, I see blue because it's on top, but you see yellow and green. Why? It's not that you're looking at a different object. You're looking at the same Rubik's Cube, but it's from a different perspective. It's the same thing with companies. It drives me bonkers when people say that's not how it works. No, it's definitely how it works. The data might be exactly the same, but because of the perspective of where they're coming from could be extremely different, that data could be perceived as something completely separate or different than from a different group. And neither could be wrong, or both could be wrong, but the long and the short of it is that data is perceived by in that way. Anyone online who has questions, concerns, comments?
While fishing for those, I've got another trick for the source list. Another trick for managing the source list. There's lots of JSON out there that you can grab that will automatically create a little nav bar that will filter the lists by the first letter of the company. So when you have the really long ones and then you want to filter it to just the A's, then you get, you can filter it to that. And to that point, that's a trick that I use so common that I actually have in my content type hub. One of my most shared columns is called letter, and it's a calculated field that shows just the first letter of the title field.
Again, that's a great way of doing it using JSON. A lot of people in JSON, they think that's their brother's name. So
yeah, no, but there's lots of just code out there. You don't even have to change it.
Oh, there absolutely is. One of the things that I definitely in the classic days that was absolutely necessary. One of the things I found here, let me actually create, because I added a new company. So let's see here. Title. So let's go with this Chief Financial Officer. It's going to be Mr. It's going to be Darth, and then Vader, because why not? And then company, and then we're going to go with, see, now, right now I can see all of them because there's 3. One of the greatest things about this is that it's also autofill, which was not a thing. So I could have dozens and dozens. I could have 2,000 items in lookup, and as long as I have an inkling of how the spelling is, it automatically jumps to it. For all you all out there, that was not a thing. That was especially in classic mode. That was not a thing.
I'm talking about from the widget page though.
Oh, yeah. So have
Widget page, you don't have that functionality.
No, that is true. That is true. But I could indeed do that, which is another filter, technically.
Yes, but it's a free filter because it's JSON and it's embedded right in the list.
It's free. But, sorry.
So what I mean by free is it doesn't count towards your cascading
Yes,
limitations.
that is correct. That is also correct. Yeah. So we'll go with space. No, actually.
So quick question: if you click on the header on that mashup page, can't you filter with free text there?
Well, let's test that theory out. So Darth,
I guess you can now. Yes, I've been doing this a very long time, and that feature wasn't always there.
No, it's newer.
Yeah, that is relatively new, and I don't think I've built one of these since that was implemented.
They're making it too easy.
Yeah, they really are.
So,
Yeah.
say that one more time, Dimitri.
So like, let's say your first list of that mashup's huge. If you
Huge.
click on the header where it says company name,
Okay.
or hover over company name, isn't there an ability to do a filter in that column?
Yeah,
Filter
by.
by. And then you can have the type of header here as
Yep, as well. Yep. In fact, because of the fact that our vendor portal has like 25 plus vendors, I actually taught them how to, as a beginning, but instead of the company name, because they don't, most often not, the sales reps don't know what company they're working for because this is worldwide. They go into the country, type in India, type in Philippines, type in Russia, type in whatever country that they're looking to have interaction with a vendor from that locale, and it automatically will shorten the list. Same concept. And I showed them exactly, use the filter by. It is one of the strongest things that is mostly unused comparative. It's one of the strongest things to use, and yet people don't use it, which drives me nuts. It's like, I try to do it this way. No, don't worry. Search and the indexing is way better than it ever was back in the OG days.
Didn't it used to not show you those advanced features when you were displaying it in a web part? I think the web part portion of it was limiting it.
It depends. I mean, they've evolved it so many times.
Yeah.
The web part, you're talking about the number of things. Yeah. So if I had a list of 120 companies, that was pushing the limit of the lookup field badly, like really bad. And that's back in WSS 2.0.
No, but I was just talking about the header filtering. I think the
header
the functionality, even though it said when you were pulling it into a web part that it would show you the full thing, it was kind of a dumbed down version of the functionality
it was
back in the day.
But the nice thing was, the filter and clicking on things, it all becomes part of the URL. So I've actually hacked it where I've done some JSON categories and stuff. You click on it, and it pastes it in. I've done the URL. So I could show you at some point, I've done some lists where I've done some really complicated filters built right into the list, what you see.
Into the URL.
Just by looking at the URL, how they work.
Yeah.
The only problem is you can't layer them, where if you do it manually, you can layer upon things.
Right.
By using the links, you can't. So I tell people the links are just a one and done. Click a link, everything changes.
Yeah.
But when you have something like the CRM where it cascades from one to the next, what you do is you can start with, let's say, for example, you create a page specific for each company, because not only are you doing the CRM part of it, but you might also have a document library that's filtered down to like the Flying Cars Limited, all the white papers that they've given us to give our sales staff more knowledge on how to sell their product.
You can even filter these middle lists. It's just that they aren't going to change the sub lists.
Right.
They're still going to filter by how it's
done-
wired up.
Yeah, and I've done stuff like that. Combining like the instruction sets that I was talking about. I'll put a link in there to our FAQs, and I'll have the FAQ link filtered by the keyword for that particular instruction set
Yep.
that they click on. So they have
So-
FAQs.
Like I said, I know a lot of information, and because a lot of us are OG, a lot of information was thrown out. You're probably going to want to see this on YouTube so you can play in slow-mo and actually kind of consume at a slower rate all the information that is. The long and the short of it is the reason why I said the Mashup is a great training tool is not using just files. Everyone knows how to use files. Sorry, that's the norm. The Mashup is showing what is possible, and when your employees know what is possible and what could potentially be, that's when innovation truly starts. And especially with this new generation coming in, when they find something shiny and they latch onto it because they've been living in a digital world their entire life, they could very well come up with solutions, just like Mike from Staples did, where he took some business process that was running a month long and shortened it down to 1 to 2 business days. Doesn't sound like there's any questions online, so I guess what I will do is I'll hand it back over to you, Bill.
Okay.
Just want to say it was a great example. I love the 3-paned things. I've built dozens of pages in that exact format of like 2 tiers of filters and then a big list of activity or relevant information. So yeah, hyper relevant.
Okay, thank you, David, for presenting.
You're welcome.
All right, Dave.
Sorry.
And again, if anybody has a chance to come and visit us, we're here in Newton. There's several rows here. It's a good sized room. We'll love to see you in person. Do you have upcoming sessions?
And there's pizza.
And pizza and drinks as well. So March, we have Ignite in Action, a playbook for moving from pilot to enterprise AI with Jared. Jared will be here in person, I believe, right?
Yes.
So this will be a great opportunity to come in person and meet Jared. And then to be announced with the other meetings as well. And so we have a call for speakers. If you have any ideas you want to present, feel free to reach out to us. Either scan the barcode or email us. We're happy to help. Even though this says 2024, it's still current. So upcoming community events. So we had the Microsoft 365 Community Conference in Orlando. I think, Dimitri, you going to that one?
Yeah, and we actually have a code for $150 off for anyone that wants to attend that conference. The promo code is TRN Digital 150.
Oh, cool.
So you can save a few dollars if you're considering that. I'll be there.
Nice. Do you know where they're hosting it this year?
It's at Universal Studios.
Universal, nice. And then Collab Days New England is coming up again in October in Burlington. That's a fun event. If you ever have a chance to attend it, there's a lot of meeting rooms going on. Uses Microsoft's meeting center in Burlington, and it uses just about every room. So it's a great event. And Microsoft Power Platform Community Conference is in Vegas. And that's also in October. And then the big event is Microsoft Ignite, which will be in November this year. And if anybody knows of any events, please feel free to come off of mute or send us a Teams chat. This is Microsoft's community. Microsoft puts on community events. Please go to pnp.github.io to get the latest events. They're trying to combine them together on different days, so they're really worth joining in. I think I need to update this slide. In additional ones, we have in the area Women in IT Pros, Power Addicts, Power Hour, and Microsoft Champions. These are all local groups. There's also the Women 365 in SharePoint. We should get their details. But that's a big event. I think it's called Women in SharePoint. That's on LinkedIn.
I don't know. I think Rachel would have the info.
Yeah, so we'll have to get that information as well. Related user groups in the area, the Rhode Island user group, the Granite State and the Boston Azure groups. Boston Azure groups, I think they're broken into 2 different divisions. I think they're run by the same group. And Power Apps. So this is when any problems or tips, I think we keep the recording going for this one. But if you have any questions or you have, want to try to stump some of the experts in the room, feel free. Come off of mute or put it in the chat. Yep.
So I am tasked with governance, data governance for a SharePoint list, which is the source of truth. However, not everybody agrees on what is the truth, what is the name of this thing. So we had an idea of potentially locking down the permissions when somebody adds a new item to the list, so that the creator would be the only one who would have edit access aside from me who's managing it. Is that a good idea or a terrible one? Is that going to make the permissions management a nightmare for me in terms of overhead?
No, I mean,
How big is the list?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors.
That's a good question. I don't know, maybe 200 items.
How big's the list? How many people? How many people would potentially be owners?
Potentially about a dozen people have edit rights and can go in there.
No, that's not bad. Okay.
It's not
It's
bad. I've done things which is unorthodox, like turning on folders for a list. And then what you do is you break inheritance just for the folders, not for the items. That'll simplify it. So if you have George, Sally, Alex, and Mo, they each have their own folder, and then you can put, let's say, 12 list items in each of those folders. Only you and Alex for the first folder can only see his items. That is certainly a way of doing it. Every time you break inheritance, it's n+1 in the level of difficulty of managing and dealing with the security model. But if you do, like I tell everyone else, there's always, when there's a good business case, there's always a reason to break inheritance, and that would be one of them in that case.
And can you still display all the data? I feel like with folders, the information might get buried.
So what you can do in the views, you can actually tell it to show without folders. So that's the other thing that is extremely powerful. So you still want to see it as a list. Well, that's great. What you do is you go in, you make the folders and tell them you guys need to work on the folders, but you might make your own personal view. I wouldn't make it public because that could potentially usher in accidents. Like, for example, I'm Alex. I'm in the one, but I don't see folders. I don't go into my folder and I create a new item, and it might be a new, using the CRM reference, it might be a new customer, but because I didn't put it in my folder, everyone can see it because it's in the root.
So how are you getting the information? You have different editors putting the information in, or are you using Microsoft Forms to get data from end users?
Different business managers. We've thought about using forms to populate the list. We might do that at some point, but right now people just go in directly to the list and use the built-in form.
So is it your end users or just your editors that are putting the new entries in?
Just the editors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you have a small set of editors. Okay.
A team, yeah.
So what I've done for larger groups, I like to have a 2 SharePoint site architecture. So I've done like a team sites for the department, and some of the departments have a communication site. So what I've done is I've done a list in the team site, and then once we get the list with all the metadata and we get looking the way we want, we've done a Microsoft form on it. Inside the list, you can do a form, and we've collected that information from the end users. And what I did is I added a column called sync, and I have a flow that once we look at it, we'll dedupe it, we'll clean it up, and then we click sync on the sync column, and then I have a flow that brings it over to the communication site. So I've done that to give us a back-end area to work. So it's like 2 lists, but it gives us a back-end area to work on things and also get in data from customers, or it's great to build a directory. It's great just to get surveys. So I've done that, two-site architecture when I need to show it to customers. So it depends on what you want to do.
So you said you have a form in the list?
Yeah, so Microsoft Lists has hidden on the top, you can create a form on top of the list, and you can decide what columns go in that form. So the nice thing is they don't need to have access to the list because you can give them the link to that form. And you're not building any workflows. You're not doing Microsoft Form and trying to tie it to a list. It's all done together.
The one where they just click add a new item, that form that pops
So
up?
that's a different form. That's, the add a new item. But this one, you have to actually give them a URL. So you'd have to give them the link somewhere. So it'd be good for like an internet web page or something, or some document. But that's a nice way for me to collect information from editors or whatever if I don't want them in the list directly. I want them to give me information, but it's one way. It's like it's not for editing.
So you embed a form in a page, a SharePoint page?
So yeah, so I'll like on our intranet site or on a page on that site, I'll have like the web part showing the data, and then I'll have a link to the form above it. But again, that's one way. It's not editing something that's already there. So it depends on if the editors are just giving you data or they need to edit existing data. So it depends on your business processes.
Okay, yeah, I'd be curious to see.
If they're giving you data, then I like the form. It simplifies it. But
Thank you. I'll think about it because
I would say +1 to everything that David said. So I absolutely agree with the whole using of folders and assigning permissions to the folders
at the folder level.
at the folder level. I would take that to the one step further though and assign a group to each of the folders. And that way your folders aren't tied to a specific user identity and you could just swap people in and out of the groups. So one of the easiest ways would be to maybe go by job title of the person instead of the name of the person for the folder names, or anything else that could be kind of unique if it's like the office that they're from or a combination of the job title and the office that
So
they're
you
like,
like
that
edit that
makes it
folder.
unique. And that way, as you have people changing roles, you don't have to go in and manually edit that. You're just doing it at the group level. You just go, oh, this person's in there. The other great thing is that also gives you lots of space to expand forward. If you decide like, oh, Sally now has an assistant and Sally's assistant wants access to all of Sally's documents. You could just add the assistant into the same group that Sally's in. Boom, you're done.
Okay, just a SharePoint group.
Yeah.
Only one for each folder.
Yeah.
That you would have in that list.
Okay.
But
Just
the
one
link
thing.
sharing would work on that too, wouldn't it? If you just did a link share and then put everybody in the link.
Be careful, it's time
Don't do
bombs.
link shares. No.
I was just asking the
evil.
question.
Yeah,
So just to add one more thing to that, I think to everyone's point, if you want to prevent people from accidentally creating an item at that top folder level, right, because you want to force them to go into their folder to create an item, you can change the permissions on that list to remove anyone's editor rights besides your own. And then, so everyone has view rights at the list level, so they can't create a new item unless they go into their folder. Because on their folder, they'll have that right level.
Great tip. Yeah.
That's a good tip, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's one of those things. I always remember that after somebody screws it up. Where it's like, oh yeah, I didn't do that thing.
Yeah,
The
so
root level.
remove it at the
Level, right.
SharePoint list level. So like, from your icon.
listings. So
Since you're doing unique permissions for every folder, that means you can highly restrict it at the top level, so nobody can accidentally do it at the top level.
Just don't forget, if anybody is an owner of your SharePoint site, they're gonna have unrestricted access to everything.
Right. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I did go in like break inheritance at the list level.
No, but even if you remove
So lock it
everyone's
down.
permissions from a list, whoever's a site owner will still have full access to it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So if you want to get rid of that, depending on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go,
Yeah.
you have to go into the site collections group on that SharePoint site settings, and then
Yeah.
remove the owners group from being site collection admins.
Okay.
Just add yourself as a backstop.
Okay.
And then that will allow you to remove other owners from being able to have unrestricted rights to that list.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. So many ideas. Is anyone else perturbed by the
Yes.
Microsoft is retiring list alerts? So the SharePoint
Yes.
alerts.
yeah,
Yes.
yes. It's I had it,
Love
I
alerts.
took a double take when I saw that. I was not a happy camper.
I missed that.
Built-in
Yeah,
alert
they're
features
definitely
going
doing
on.
that.
On document libraries as well?
Yeah,
On everything.
Oh,
Lists
listen,
and libraries, yep,
Wow.
yep.
Fairly soon too, right? This summer.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, by the way, we're taking this away from you.
They've replaced it with this little WYSIWYG thing that basically creates a flow.
Oh, yeah, the SharePoint
Which is-
rules, which I
Yeah, the
don't
SharePoint
love.
rules, which
Let it flow.
That's
it
good
is
to know.
cool because it does have more functionality, but
But now it relies on the flow running and the user account
Yeah.
not being locked and.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's also got all the limitations and
Yeah.
issues of flows.
I think it's the SharePoint rules is all right for end users. Like it's like kind of simple. Like the people who have
I'm with
edit
you.
rights
I
on my
love
list.
alerts.
But I'm trying to build a Power Automate workflow right now so that I get like a nice table of all the updates to my list emailed to me, and it's like a mess.
the alert was so nice. You know, because what I would do if I'm watching a document library,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just do it, send it to me at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Yep.
That way, I get 2 hours if I need to react quickly.
I do the same thing. Yeah.
The thing is, with the alerts, if you see like a daily alert of changes, it'll actually show you what's changed for each list item.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
In
What's
Flow,
changed
there
and
is
what
no
it used to
easy
be.
way to do that.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
It's not. No.
I love the summary. I would use the summary, like
Yeah.
at the end of the week, tell me what's changed in the site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
And
set
what
it up
did it used
for,
to be? Like, what if people deleted something and you need to put it back? Or
Mhm.
I used to do it all the time for SharePoint task lists
Yeah.
and have it send me a weekly summary right before we had the weekly meeting
Stand up,
to
yeah.
review all of it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I guess you can build a text
Oh,
file. and then-
auto agenda.
I guess I can build two flows, one that appends to a text file and the other one that emails it to me at the end of the week or something, but,
Yeah, but it's so much more complicated.
oh, yeah.
But like with the
Yeah, I
SharePoint
know
list, it'll show you the exact fields that were
Right,
modified.
everything.
Yeah.
I have a link to it, yeah, I love
So
it.
you'd have to like store everything. And then for every item, go and read back the previous version, and
I missed
Yeah.
that.
Feature parity is not there.
it's not easy to do in flows.
No.
It's actually extremely complicated to do.
Yep. Got to use OpenClaw.
what's that?
Yeah, and then they'll start charging you for flows. That's just another way of monetizing things.
I haven't heard anything besides premium flows, but
Okay,
who knows?
who knows? Any other questions or anybody online or? So a huge thank you to Turn Digital again for sponsoring the user group, providing the space, the food. Again, next month's speaker is here in person, so feel free to come by. That's it.
Yay, Grub. Thanks, Turn Digital.
Stop the recording.
Thank you.